We have a paper on cool hunting, we have a paper on tattooing, and then we have a paper on music. So first up, I'm going to invite John Coletta. Thank you. So John is a professor of English at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point and currently sits on the board of the American Journal of Semiotics. He is also CEO of Interp, Inc., a consulting company offering semiotic services in several domains. His paper is entitled 15 Semioethic Principles for Cool Hunters and the Alive 5 for the Symbol Hunter. Please welcome John.
So the first thing I have to say is that I'm presenting tool 3. So, you know, in your program there, you'll see tools 1 and 2 were advertised. And as I was trying to operationalize tools 1 and 2, and in Interp, my business, we have medical semiotics, legal semiotics, forensic semiotics, marketing and branding semiotics, the semiotics of information technology, the semiotics of visual intelligence. And so these tools that I've come up with, some seem to apply more to marketing semiotics clearly, some less at this early stage, just a brand new business that I have. So this is actually tool 3. Those of you who are interested from having read about tools 1 and 2, right, I will make available to everybody at the conference tools 1, tools 2, tools 3. So I had to just get that up there quick. So tool 3, I call it a general systems theory. That's kind of from the 60s and 70s. A general systems theory model 2.0. I'm sort of calling it systems semiotics, a kind of blending of semiotics as we understand it maybe today, and the general systems theory that was so popular in the 60s and 70s. So I'm going to refer to general systems theory model 2.0 as systems semiotics. The rallying cry in systems semiotics is see every business as a system. And, you know, we've talked about that, right? That's old school, you know, how to think systemically. But I was thinking I need a kind of Persian diagram, you know, of systemic thought. That's what I was working for as I tried to construct the model I'm going to share with you today. So the rallying cry, see every business as a system, but what does such a revisioning, you know, of business as a semiotic system, what does that entail? I think there are 3 take-homes right off the bat. Consider always, I would say to any client, consider always, if you're trying to open up, let's say, and the case study here has to do with a brew pub in Madison, Wisconsin, a kind of farm-to-foam brew pub. And what I say to those who have opened bars that seem to be failing is you're not considering, number 1, the power of community. Don't see, you know, other businesses in your community as like the enemy or the competitor. You know, understand how the existence of other businesses is part of your empowerment strategy by linking to them. So always consider the power of community. Number 2, understand that 1 + 1 = 3. In my little college town, we have an entrepreneur. He started a business, the first sort of farm-to-table bistro business in this little college town. So it's kind of hip downtown. He opened the place up. It was pretty popular. And what does he do 2 years later? He starts a second business across the street. Right? And everybody's saying, well, geez, you're going to cut your, you know, you're going to cut in half, you know, your business. You know, what are you doing? And what happened? A year and a half later, it was the 1 + 1 = 3. He didn't even see himself as a competitor. You see, that's the genius of that. It was 1 + 1 = 3. He was making 3 times the amount of money. Not half and half, but 3 times total. Why? Because the downtown became a community, a place to go, right? A general place. We'll go downtown and see what's there. So I always say, think of the community as a source of power, even if, you know, you're looking at yourself as part of the community. Think in terms of 1 + 1 = 3. That is, in fact, the old systems theory shibboleth. And then also, remember in the old days, it was get big or get out in the Eisenhower era. Now, and then they transformed it in the 70s to grow or die. And now I say grow sustainably or die, which means linking, again, your business within the community, which ultimately is going to mean what? Co-selling, co-promoting, affinity promotion, those kinds of things. So, So now, what are the principles of general systems theory or system semiotics? Just quickly here, every system, you don't have to take notes because, like I say, I'll send this to you if you're interested in it. Every system, natural or cultural, which is to say an ecosystem or barley pop or One Barrel Brewing Company. These are the two successful companies, providers of, like I say, farm to foam, local craft beer. Next door is a place called Table Wine, which is failing, right? And I applied this business systems model to the success of barley pop and One Barrel and the failure of, and it has a lot to do with service-scapes as well, the failure of Table Wine. So what are the principles? You know, if I were to have a training workshop, my professor and I, back in 1979, won a Mitchell Prize, a sustainability prize. In 1979, George Mitchell was a Texas oil baron who realized in the 70s that sustainable growth makes sense, right? And Paul Ehrlich won first prize. He's the population Bob dude, and my professor and I won second prize. And I guess I shouldn't, with 15 minutes, go off into that area. But the idea of the paper was this. We had a model for how to train executives to think in terms of eco-logic and business logic together. And so this is a kind of, I've picked that up again, this idea of how to train an entrepreneur, a business person, an executive in thinking eco-logically and systemically. So what are the principles? Well, every system, natural or cultural, has a basic twofold division: energy flow and material cycle. Very important, has to do a lot with the second law of thermodynamics. Material cycle, energy flows. Now, energy flow can also mean information flow or cash flow. It's not just insignificant that that there are these sort of metaphoric connections there. Information flow, cash flow, energy flow is unidirectional. Material cycle, very big, with lots of applications, as a matter of fact, as you'll see. Every system also has three functional parts: a base, a unity, and duality. Every system has two loci, a locus of growth and a locus of stability. Now, in marketing semiotics, the locus of stability would be your product. For Charles Sanders Peirce, that would be the object, right? What is the locus of growth? That would be the brand. So it has to do with the brand and the product as your two loci of stability and of growth. For Peirce, like I say, that would be the sign and the object. In a natural ecosystem, it's life, which is the locus of growth, and the soil. So these are, these are sort of the general systems principles. Also, every part of a system is itself a system. This is what I try to get across to business professionals. Every part of the system, the base, as we'll see, for barley pop, the brew pub, the base is not just hops and barley. The base is a system, a cycle, what they now call farm to foam, right? And so what they do at One Barrel is they have a relationship with a local farm, sends them the barley, sends them whatever grains they use for their beer, and then of course they create the foam, they create the beer, the product, and then what do? They recycle, they send back to the farm, the residue of the spent, a barley that they've used to brew their beer. So it's a cycle. So even the base is not just a material, right? Something, it's a process, as you'll see in the system. So that's another important thing. Number 5, in a true system, the parts equal steps, right? And I realize this with modeling ecological systems, that in the Earth ecosystem you have base, unity, duality, like in any system. The base is the rock cycle. The unity is the water cycle, water being the only chemical able to carry the inorganic materials to the organic realm, and from the organic back to the inorganic. That's why water is the unity of the system. And the duality is between the biosphere and the atmosphere. As a matter of fact, what's interesting, in almost every system, you see that it's a kind of rock to air sort of evolution. We move towards effete notions of digital experience, as you'll see, even in an ecosystem. As a matter of fact, I like to say that the air in an ecosystem is like the internet of the Earth. Right? And you'll see when I present my model that the structure of a system, which is basically 4 parts, a lithosphere, a hydrosphere, atmosphere, and biosphere, they connect in a sort of complex way, but we begin to see that the parts are steps. It evolved. First, there was a rock cycle before there was ever a water cycle. Until the Earth cooled, there wasn't a water cycle, right? And I try to get this across to how do you build a business? You build a business sort of in the same way. You got to get if it's a bar, you got to get your farm to foam cycle relationships involved first. Next comes what would be the water cycle in an ecological system. For a business person, it's the semiocycle. It's not water molecules, it's signs. And it's the relationship not between the soil and life, it's the relationship between your product and your brand. And you have to then establish that unity first. Before then you move to what Laura Oswald calls, the servicescape, which ultimately is not in like an ecosystem, the biosphere and the atmosphere, but in a business system, it's the analogical and the digital. Those are the two service realms. So let's see here, moving on. Oh, and then finally, in a dynamic system, each part or step always pre-mediates, as Richard Gruson says, the next and remediates the former. I'll give an example of that here quick soon. So here you see this is a very successful bar in Madison, Wisconsin called Barley Pop. And, I was talking about how there are 6 principles, one of which is duality, right? Every system has a base unity duality. Here's just an example of a duality. In the same, table wine doesn't have this. Table wine is like this kind of living room where you can buy wine and sit down. It doesn't have the proscenium arch of a bar, but you'll notice here the productive duality is between, well, it's a local brew pub, while it's also a corporate convenience store, right? It has both dimensions, and they sort of mediate and remediate and pre-mediate each other in sort of interesting ways. I would never buy beer at a corporate, a convenience store. But here I sort of like it because it's stacked all with what? Craft beers. So they have the convenience store, sort of the beautiful light, the lines, the reachability, the access, but they mirror that, notice, with this digital representation here of the old, like in a train station, the flip chart screen. They have the same idea there. These two mediate and pre-mediate each other. As a matter of fact, the reachability and the light and the clarity and the beautiful lines of the corporate convenience store are replicated in this digital display here, the split flap display, where every beer they have, sometimes though they're craft beers, they'll only have them for 4 hours. Right? It's like a train coming and going, departing. Right? Sometimes the beer's there, and then of course they also have little plaques where you can sign up for the Untapped. The Untapped app, because what the Untapped app will tell you, very convenient. It tells you where every beer is in a 150-mile location, right? So you've got 2 kinds of convenience. You've got the digital convenience, and you've got the analogical, old-school convenience. So that's what I mean by productive duality in any system. Oops, I think I'm going the wrong way. And here's that digitally rendered analog split flap display. Keep going the wrong way. Here here's a mashup, maybe does a better job of showing the remediation and pre-mediation, how on the left, the analog glass, they call it a glass door reach-in beer display, how that sort of prepares us for the digital split flap display. And so the one pre-mediates the other, and the other remediates. Again, I would never find myself wanting to shop in this kind of a convenience store place, but somehow the clean, cool efficiency of this sort of represents, and it sort of remediates the clean, cool efficiency of this. And by remediation, what I mean, I think most of us understand, in my digital phone, I have an app that it remediates the old analog clock. So it uses digital technology to create an analog clock that I have in front of me. So that's kind of what I mean by how you pre-mediate and remediate. One Barrel Brewing Company, another beer. Here they have the analogical pastoral. I was saying that in any good business you have a duality, and in most business places, servicescapes, you have the analogical, which is sort of the physical realm, and then you have the digital realm. And you have to sort of play with both, it seems to me today, like they do at Barley Pop, to be successful. And you can see how Here's remediation. So one barrel, which comes across like this, literally they have one barrel and that they brew their beer in, right? So talk about farm to foam. They've got one barrel, but notice how like their advertisement. Here is, you know, your basic digital algorithm, you know. So it's sort of, it's kind of hip, it's you know, it's modern, it's digital, and they use the digital to remediate, to update and sort of help us to accept the old analogical. It's no longer corny. So I know I have about 1 minute. So I kind of go through each. I only go through principle one, and then I'll zip to the model, and then we'll take questions. But every system has a basic twofold division I had mentioned, energy flow and material cycle. So for marketing people, this is important because, you know, how do you get people to buy, you know, spend their money? Will they most likely spend with a green earth, sort of like recycle, material cycle perspective, or are they more likely to be involved if they think that they can save money and help the earth? Why is this distinction hardwired deep within us? Because we understand that cash flow, information flow, energy flow is unidirectional, right? It's the second law of thermodynamics. And so any appeal that's going to help us save money to save the earth is going to just, we're wired to accept that because the second law of thermodynamics that sort of basically codes our body. So let me see, we'll just power through this. I'm just going to show you the whole model now because obviously I have too many slides. So, you know, the only other thing I wanted to say when I like to work with business people is, you know, traditional models, you know, let's say, well, there's 4 domains and they're sort of all connected and everything's tied to everything else. You know, that's just too sloppy. What I prefer is, and here's the model using 4 domains, right? Here's the model where you have, there you go, your base, your unity, and here's your duality. This would be this is the landscape or the farm shed. This is the semiosphere, and you can see the 2 points I talked about. Here's the locus of stability. Here's the locus of change. That would be the product. That would be the brand. This would be the Persean object. This would be the Persean sign. And what we have here would be the servicescape. On this side, it would be the analogical. This is the evolution of the digital, because the system evolves like this. And I'll just show you, and that'll be the end here, how that evolves, and we don't have much time to go into the details, but so here's how that's the base. System evolves like that. You form that cycle first, then you work on your sign cycle, your product brand cycle. The system evolves like this because every model of a system that exists structurally in the present is always already a model of how it got that way. It's a evolutionary blueprint. This is what I try to help the business people understand, is that, you know, the structure of the system in the present is, like I say, an amalgamation of the past. And here's your main decision point right here. Because if this is getting your farm-to-foam base, if this is getting your product and your brand in alignment, what's the next stage in the evolution? Well, here, this is called scalability. This is about can you actually make enough of whatever you make? Can you make enough beer? But here's your decision point. Is it about pure growth, or is it about sustainable growth? And if it's about sustainable growth, I say that's where the power today is, and that's where you start to use co-selling, co-promoting, affinity marketing, and you see this all over the place. You know, Barley Pop, it's a CSA drop-off, you know, community-sponsored agriculture. So they're integrating systems. They're selling each other's beer. As a matter of fact, I guess to go back to my point there about, you know, the chef who had that bistro and then brought in another bistro, and it was the 1 + 1 = 3. You know, we love our corner, I guess I better close, we love our corner brew pub, and when they opened up this new Barley Pop, which is kind of digital and analogical, I was thinking, oh boy, there goes, right, there goes one barrel. But it didn't. As a matter of fact, what does the brew pub sell? It sells 1 barrel beer, right? It sells all local beers, right? So they actually complement each other. So that's kind of so the system then. And then we go backwards, you can see that's how the system exists at any one point in time. And so I use this model, gone through it very fast, I use it to help entrepreneurs, you know, think systemically, think in terms of community, think in terms of the 1 + 1 = 3, and think in terms of grow or die, grow sustainably or die. So thank you.
Thanks so much, John. That's really interesting, talking a theory about how we can help our clients grow their business using semiotics. Does anyone have any questions for John? Ava?
Actually,
Oh, okay. All right, sorry. You're the one with the mic. You get to pick.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a question. It was a comment. It was just, I thought it was very illuminating to, instead of having 4 circles with lines between them, to turn that into a Venn diagram. Just that very simple diagram by itself did a lot. So that was
I'm glad you picked that up, because I thought that was a key moment, right? We tend to think sort of broadly in broad generalities about how systems work. It's all connected. Notice the big circle around it. I've seen big circle, and this is all connected. But what we need is a more integrated understanding of the structure and function of systems, right? Yep. Both in the present time and as a kind of historical record of how they got that way. So I appreciate that you liked that connection there.
Hi, that was really good. I just wanted to ask you about table wine. You said this was very similar, and yet it failed. What would you say is the one or the major divergence in terms of the systems semiotics, or however you're producing the model here, that caused its failure?
Well, it's a good question, right? One thing that popped out to me right away with Barley Pop, which was the craft beer bar that had the digital and the analogical, the convenience store world, but it was still like an old-fashioned brew pub, yet then it had the digital, split flat display. You see none of that. Table wine was based on a kind of nostalgia, right?
So there's no duality?
Yeah, there was no duality. There's a kind of nostalgia. You look in, right, in terms of Laura Oswald's perspective, the service case, you look in, there's no clear understanding of space, right? And spatial dynamics. There's no bar. Right? So if I'm a guy walking down the street and I look in table wine, it's just chairs and couches, and there's no front because they have a cash register, right? Whereas when you walk into Barley Pop, first of all, it kind of looks a little like a convenience store, right? And you have that, the beautiful clean lines of the reach-in, right? Beer holding display, right? But then you see at the same time the analogical, right? The analogical split platform, and then you see there's a bar. So an individual they also have picnic tables and bistro tables. So you have 3 different kinds of spaces, plus a clear proscenium arch of spatial division. So it's a productive duality between past, present, where the present reinvigorates the past, and vice versa, right? The past authorizes the future. But table wine is based on a romantic nostalgia.
Okay,
they
great.
also have the farm and phone. They don't have, and maybe it's part because we don't make a lot of wine in Wisconsin, so they can't advertise the local, right? So Barley Pop is both local, and it can tell you exactly what's happening 300 miles away, what local beer is being served 300 miles away. They have no digital, they have just a chalkboard in table wine. So it's the lack of productive, duality, the lack of remediation, pre-mediation of past and present, right?
This is actually a question about complex adaptive systems. So the most current thinking in systems theory is actually not engineering or science-based or mechanically based, but far more looking into that. And a lot of writing now also says that language sort of fits this complex adaptive system kind of a concept, rather than how it used to be thought of, mechanically structured, fixed, predictable. But so anything that you would like to say about, since you work in, you're interested in systems theory, about complex adaptive systems and semiotics and language?
Just because there's a structure, just because there's it's kind of like French structuralism, right? It seems to be that you're thinking the structure, is the tail that wags the dog. But no, it's all about first intimate semiosis. it just starts over again, right? It never ends. So, you know, though it appears to be structuralist and maybe limited by the boundaries of structuralism, it's not. It really is a Peircean open model of semiosis, right? If that makes any sense. Yep. Yeah. Right? Thank you very much. I don't want to take any more time. So.